Welcome back again to Joe Stunner Boxing. How many times have we said it? Put a British title on the line, you're going to get two evenly matched guys fighting their hearts out. And so it came to pass that Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke battled for the British and the Commonwealth heavyweight titles. An absolute barn burner, a brilliant, grueling, grinding, savage fight. Ended up as a draw, a split draw. Final card was 113. I scored this as I watched it live. I made it 114, 112 to Fabio Wardley. But in actual fact, that's 6 rounds each because Wardley had a couple of 10-8s. There was a knockdown. When was the knockdown? 5th round or something? So a 10-8 for the knockdown. And it was it the 4th or the 5th? This fight is there's so much happened. And I'm doing this video literally like 10 minutes after I watched the fight. So if I get a few little factoids wrong, sorry. And the other 10-8 was because Frazer had a point taken off, which was a little bit controversial. I think it was it low blows? It was a low blow near the ropes. And I don't think he was warned. I mean, Steve Gray refereed. He ain't a bad referee, but yeah, a little bit harsh, the 10-8. But anyway. Where do we start with this? Okay, so we know that Frazer Clarke is an Olympic bronze medalist, very well schooled, good fundamentals. He's 32 now. He turned pro quite late. Fabio Wardley, I think he was it a blue collar fighter? He didn't have any sort of. I don't think he had any amateur fights. Had very few. I may be wrong. You correct me. He's 29, so the younger man. But Wardley came in with much more experience as a professional. 17 fights, 16 KOs. Frazer had 8 wins with 6 KOs. Certainly the quality of the opposition was with Fabio Wardley. He actually knocked out David Adelaide in his previous fight. So he was the favourite coming in, despite the guy Frazer, despite Frazer being the supposed better technical fighter. I think he probably is, when it comes to the fundamentals, he definitely is better. But my God, Fabio Wardley, he's got what the Australians say, he's got some cunt in him. Right, nasty little sod, big sod. I mean, this guy he's a fighting man. He's a fighting man. Well, they both are. But to start with, first couple of rounds, Frazer. I like Frazer's style because it's a very conventional style, and it's nice high guard. He does the fundamentals so well, jabs very well, fires the backhand, orthodox fighter. Fabio Wardley, I think Frazer's about 6'6", Wardley's about 6'5". They looked about the same, but the bigger man, probably in terms of natural weight, is Frazer Clarke. But Wardley's style, he isn't a bad fighter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he isn't. He just doesn't have a lot of technical prowess. He does. He boxes actually very well, but he just loves to have a punch up, doesn't he? And early on in the fight, possibly I think the second round, there was a cut over the bridge of Wardley's nose. There's no doubt that Frazer Clarke was doing some good work with the jab, and he was quite sparing with his punches, but he was firing with quite a bit of accuracy, and also he's deceptively fast with the hands because he's a big guy. You think the hands aren't that fast. He fired, kind of what round it was. He fired one right cross that pinged off Wardley's head. And I'll tell you something else with this fight as well. Wardley showed he's got a jaw because he was stung a few times. Certainly Frazer was. We'll come to that in a moment. But Wardley took a few flush punches from a 19-stone man and hung tough. Now, I can't remember what round the knockdown was. Was it fourth round? Frazer got clipped, and the thing about Wardley is he's a shark. If he smells blood, he's going straight at you. And sure enough, he did just that. Both hands tore after Frazer. Frazer tried to hold his shape, was stung, moved back to the ropes, and then there was a combination. Most of the punches landed. I can't remember the punch that put Frazer over. I think it was it a left? I don't know. I've only got 50-50 and it's going to be a left or a right. But I don't know which punch put him over. But Frazer fell back near the ropes, got up, looked okay, a little bit buzzed, but generally okay. And that was... So the round ended and clearly a 10-8. But I'll tell you what, even though Wardley tried to jump on Frazer in the next round, which I think was the 5th, Frazer was having none of it. He actually went back to his boxing. You see, this is it with the schooling, with being well schooled. If it's something that's second nature to you, if you've done it for years and years and years, you know, even though you're hurt, you're stung, you'll go back to your, you know, learned behaviour. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Now, as the fight progressed, there was no real mauling going on. I mean, Clarke lost his mouthpiece a couple of times, I think, but there were no real interruptions. It's not like the referee was separating them. There was a lot of clean work going on, and Frazer was definitely catching Wardley with some serious straight punches. The thing about Frazer was, from the word go, you could tell that he's got this penchant for leaving a gap on the side of his left-hand side, and you could see Wardley's right hand coming over the top and clipping him. And you just thought that gap, that hole in his defence. It looked ominous to me that Wardley was going to catch Frazer with that particular punch, and maybe put him over again. But it didn't happen. That's not to say Wardley didn't land. It's just that Frazer, despite being on the floor previously, he was able to soak up the punishment. Now, I want to say the sixth round, I can't remember the exact round the point was taken off, but there was that low blow. They were on, Frazer had Wardley on the ropes, pumped in, I think it was a left hand low. Referee saw it, took a point off. So by this time, I mean, you got virtually 2/3 of the fight over. You're thinking, you know, Wardley's probably ahead on points, but let's bear in mind that neither of these guys have been 12 rounds. And it was showing. I mean, after 8 rounds, they were both knackered. But I'll tell you what, Wardley is, even though he was absolutely shattered after about 8 rounds, he didn't stop throwing punches. It's like everything that he had in him, he was throwing. Absolutely no quitting the guy. Whereas Frazer, despite being knackered, again, because of his technique, he was more, conservative's the wrong word, but he was a little bit more, tentative's the wrong word. He just sort of reverted to that boxing style. There was nothing wild about him. There was nothing uncultured about it. He was going to try and box his way through the fatigue, if you know what I mean. Whereas Wardley was just looking to sort of take your head off. And whenever he clipped you, he'd go mental, Wardley would. I mean, he was flailing all over the place. By this point, he had gaps in his defence, which Clarke couldn't quite take advantage of because he was knackered himself, although he did land some punches. And Wardley's nose, I mean, in the later rounds, it actually looked like it had been smashed flat. Yeah. I made a video about Fundora saying, okay, Tim Tszyu had that dent in his head and the blood went in his eyes, and that obviously affected him. But don't forget that Fundora had he was busted nose and blood in his mouth, and he was swallowing blood, and that's just as bad as, I mean, if you can't see because of the blood, that's a bad thing, but that is a serious hindrance to anyone. And Wardley had that. As people were saying, yeah, but so what? No. If you're swallowing blood, that's very, very bad. Wardley was doing the same thing. His nose was smashed to bits. In fact, the doctor had a look at it, I think, between the 9th and 10th, or 10th and 11th, or something like that. But no way was his fight getting stopped. And in the end, they just fought their hearts out. And it wasn't that there was a tremendous amount of punches being landed. I think in the last third of the fight, they were just too knackered, both of them. Clarke, like I say, tried to sort of navigate his way through his fatigue with his technique, which was very good. Wardley was, I don't know why, but because he, with the 2 10-8s, perhaps, I don't know really. I mean, perhaps he did think I need a knockout, but he was coming forward and trying to knock Frazer out. Frazer was landing some hard punches, but he was sticking to his boxing, try and get through the tiredness with the boxing. With Wardley and his smashed up nose, it was a case of, I'm just going to throw everything at you. And they just rocked and rolled to the final bell. As the final bell went, Clarke was so knackered he actually sat on the bottom rope and eventually sort of sat on the canvas, whereas Wardley was picked up by his, corner man and paraded around the ring. And he was shagged as well. And in fact, neither of them gave a post-fight interview. They both went back to get checked out, rightly so. The cards were announced, split draw. I'm not going to complain. I think if either guy had won it by a point or two, it wouldn't have been fair on the other guy. But for the record, I had it 114, 112 to Wardley. But hey, I ain't complaining about a draw. But a brilliant fight, an absolutely brilliant fight. And would you pay to watch this again? Of course you would. Of course you would. What a great fight. What did you think? One for the history books? Well, you know, great fight. Great heavyweight, British heavyweight dust-up. Yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Tell me you thought won, or do you think a draw is fair? And if you thought one of the guys won, why? Why? Maybe the knockdown, maybe, you know, you tell me. All right, guys, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Please do. Hit the like button as well. Great fight indeed. Looking forward to reading your comments, and yeah, bye for now.